Greater light, greater light, greater light. I like that new background music. I could just let it play. That ain't my intro. Y'all know what my intro usually be, but I like that one there. I'm not going to tell you the title. I don't want you to think I'm trying to do what Sander Vander Linden does with his gangs. It's about time to read. I've been waiting on this. I'm trying to see if I can read with my background music on. No, it might be too much distraction. But I love that one there. Oh, man. Oh. There we go. I'll turn it off. I'll turn it off. So here I am on the Foolproof. And if you look at the cover of the book, he has FOOLPROOF, 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 and FOOLPROOF. And if you turn it to the side, the way I got it, it says roof, roof, roof. They always find a way to try to pick at the dogs, knowing that they the dogs in the first place. When Jesus was talking to the dogs, he was saying, I'm not talking to you until you know I have to call you a dog, because if they know that you claim that you's a cat from the line of Judah, they gonna kill you. So auntie, am I supposed to give the dogs, give you they crumbs? Auntie, what do you do when you find out that only the dogs don't even have sickle blood? The dogs don't even have sickle blood. The dogs have, they don't have sickle blood, but the lion does. The lion blood was sickle, and a camel. Caramel. You want some caramel on this Sander, Lander, Vinden, Van. I'm ready to read this book. He don't mind if I'm making jokes and stuff like this, since he's a gamer, You would have to go back to the introduction of the author about a few hours ago to know what I'm talking about when I refer to Sander Vander Linden, Sander Vander. Who is that? Marvin! Oh my goodness, what did I do to deserve this? What did I do to deserve Marvin 2.2? You over here? Greater light. You said great light that unmasked the hidden narcissist. Hey, La Abai. I had Rabbi, because of Red Squid X. He said, yeah, if you take that Ra in that, yeah, Rabbi. But the Labai, that means lion. It really does. It means lion. You can go look it up. Don't believe me, check it out. But let me go ahead and start reading this Foolproof. Foolproof. And I'm going to do like I normally do. Start from the very, very beginning of the book. Don't skip no pages. Don't skip nothing that's on it. Learned by Melchizedek. It says here, advanced reading copy, not for sale. This book was not for sale, and it ended up in my hand. They put it there just for me, right next to the righteous mind. And then when you open it, says, one of the world's top experts on fighting misinformation reveals the psychology behind its power and how we can protect ourselves. Who is the our? Look. I when I put this in the description, I was like, infects our minds. Sander Vander Linden letting you know his mind is already infected, and he's trying to teach people through the gaming, the drug and the said. He's trying to teach y'all how to help him build immunity, because he said his Mine is already infected with misinformation. That's what the title says. I'm not making it up. From fake news to conspiracy theories. Let me wet my throat already. Goodness. From fake news to conspiracy theories. Listen, someone made a mention earlier, said that, so I made a sacrifice. And I started to defend it and realized I'm not supposed to defend it. Because as soon as I got off the phone, I heard the scripture and remembered this scripture growing up. I beseech ye, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your body. You are the living word, and the living sacrifice that comes out of the word is thankful and truth. That you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. So yes, it was a sacrifice. It was my reasonable service to the great elder that made that statement to me earlier. Alchemos 83. Now I could get to the reading because that was on my conscience. I had to get it out there. I said, wait a minute. I said, nope, I'm the elder. I said what I had to say and I got to go. I got to hang it up. Click. And I said, no, wait. Let me explain. Nope, click. And then the scripture came, see how everything will come back to you. Come back to your remembrance. I learned that scripture, around 1987. I beseech thee, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice. You are the living word. All you got is your word, your voice, and your sound mind and right reasoning. Holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Yeah. Okay. From fake news to conspiracy theories, from pandemics to politics, misinformation may be the defining problem of our era. Like a virus, misinformation infects our minds, altering our beliefs and replicating at astonishing rates. Once the virus takes hold, our primary strategies of fact-checking and debunking are an insufficient cure. In Foolproof, psychologist Sander van der Linden introduces a new paradigm for combating what the World Health Organization has declared worldwide infodemic. Synthesizing decades of social psychology, studies with groundbreaking original research, he explains why our brains are so susceptible to misinformation, how it spreads across social networks, and how we can cultivate immunity. The answer is the innovative science of pre-bunking. You want to debunk something, it's best to pre-bunk it before you get in that bunk bed and go straight to sleep. That's what he's trying to say. Remember, if y'all want to know what I think about Sander van der Linden, since I allowed myself to let him introduce himself to me through artificial intelligence in my own research. That's what he's saying, huh? The answer is the innovative science of pre-bunking, inoculating people against misinformation by preemptively exposing them to a weakened dose and empowering them to identify and fend off its manipulative tactics. This sounds like wait a minute. I got a sound to go with that one right there. Wait a minute. That's not loud enough. That's not loud enough. One more time. I got a sound to go with that. One more time. No. I did sound effects to go with this stuff. It ain't working. Look at that. That toilet was supposed to flush. The answer to this innovative science of pre-bunking, inoculating people against misinformation by preemptively exposing them to a weakened dose and empowering them to identify and fend off its manipulative tactics. He say you need to be vaccinated. With engaging case studies and practical strategies for institutions and individuals alike, Foolproofs is the definitive book on resisting nefarious. He gonna put the Nephilim up in there. He gonna try to put the Nephas in there. Y'all know how to spell Nephar, right? Nefarious persuasions. See? Oh. I'm gonna stop interrupting. I'm gonna read and be quiet. Sander Vender Linden is a professor of social psychology and society at the University of Cambridge and advises governments. I told you. See, look. He called the government down here. He said, I need y'all to stick that book. She won't be quiet, huh? She getting louder and louder. Stick that book in there. Let's see what we can do. Stick it right next to The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. He advises governments and social media companies. I told y'all he worked with Elon. He worked with, what's his name? Mark Zucker. Meta. He worked with all of them. And he definitely worked with YouTube. So I know he catching this. On fighting misinformation. Which part of the misinformation? How much control are you going to have over the misinformation when they so-called going to the moon on June 25th? Huh? How much misinformation do you help protect when they say that the earth is spinning at a rate at 25 hours a day? How much do you help on misinformation when schools and people have been challenging to take the Bible out of the educational system? Children can't come to school with their Bibles now. That 72-hour test or whatever, 3-day test, or however long it was. In states like Utah, Texas, and they getting ready to try to make moves. How much do you help with that type of misinformation? Huh, Sander Vander Linden? His award-winning research has been featured in New York Times and the Rolling Stones. Now, you know, when it's featured in the Rolling Stones, any Van Halen and all of them, Van Hells, the Vanders, they big time. And it says, and elsewhere. He lives in Cambridge, UK. London McLovin, do you live not far from Sander Vander Linden? Was he one of your classmates? No, you don't seem like you that old. But he was born in 1984 when the Drogon game came out. The Draconian game came out in 1984. That's the year he came to birth. Foolproof. And it says, by the same author, title to come. Literally, that's what it says on the next page. By the same author, title to come 1, title to come 2, and title to come 3. Foolproof, why we fall for misinformation and how to build immunity. And there's a bird. It looks like a seagull. It might be some type of Linden Vanderburn bird that only sits in the linden tree. But it has 100 on it. And y'all know who Norton is. Norton is a viral protector. Well, it says W.W. Norton and Company, celebrating a century of independent publishing. And then it says copyright 2023 by Vander Linden. And then it says for Gavi. Hey, Google, what is Gavi? See, this is a book that I'm not going to do how I did over there with Jonathan Haidt. I'm going to be stopping and asking questions because he's so high and mighty up there. I need to be on point every single time. Who in the world is Gavi? Bing, 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 bing. Huh? Etymology of Gavi. Huh? The Gavilan. That probably is some high society people. The word Gavi is different. Different meanings in different contexts. Uh-oh. Gavi is an acronym for the Vaccine Alliance. See that? I knew it. Look at Alchemos. Look at it. He didn't say for my dear love, Gavi. He didn't say for my darling Clementine, Gavi. He didn't say for my granddaddy, Gavi. He just said for Gavi, old scientific research and development, gamer, Sander Vander Linden. Look at the earth. The earth is in a teardrop on this. I'm definitely gonna screenshot this one. Should I? Or you just type it in yourself? It's the earth is a blue on one side and a green on one side, and the earth is in a teardrop. And it says the word Gavi has different meanings and origins depending on the context. Thank you, Melchizedek. Here are some possible explanations. Said every time somebody writes something in a book, it means something. Know what it means. I can't just pass by when they be like, and I wrote this book for my dear lovely children. Nah, this doctor right here said for Gavi. And Gavi is an acronym for the Vaccine Alliance, public-private. Ain't Elon them been talking about public privatizing going in chaos right now through artificial intelligence? A public-private global health partnership that aims to increase access to immunization in poor countries. The name Gavi was adopted in 2014, and it was previously known as Gavi Alliance. And before that, the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations. And what does he say in the front of this book? Didn't I say earlier, you need to go back. Before I opened this book to start reading, I did my research just on his name alone. And I said, you need a pill to try to build immunity on something. You got to use some type of pharmaceutical something. And if he's a psychologist, you know, they love writing prescriptions. And his book says how to build immunity. And then he going to dedicate it to Gavi. Okay. Gavi is a short term for, now he could be talking hells and angels since he's a Vander. Remember I covered his name? Go back. I'm telling you, it's best to look at what I had to say about the author before you listen to me going on reading this book. Gavi is short form for Gabriel, which is derived from the Hebrew name Gavriel. God is my strength. Heroine of God, a heron of God. Gavi is used both by baby boys and girls of Israel. Now, which Israel he talking about? Is he talking about the Israel that came out of Solomon? Solomon who used all 72 demons. Because that star, which is not a star, it's two pyramids. One pyramid on top of the other. And I'm pretty sure that's what he's talking about because he uses an illustration in his book of a clear pyramid and a pyramid on the bottom made of a black line. And he used a Pac-Man motto. That's just me flipping through the pages. So I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and the same day that I seen that, I looked in. I don't drink Mountain Dew, right? I don't drink Mountain Dew. But I bought Mountain Dew when I was out on my mission the other day because there were some people that I just wanted to, since I was getting me a drink, I just picked up a couple of different flavors. And I know I'm pretty sure I seen one of them with a can of Mountain Dew in their hand. So I was like, I'm going to pick up Mountain Dew. But then one of them didn't, they weren't around when I went back out. So I came home, I said, well, I might as well go ahead and drink this Mountain Dew, even though I don't like Mountain Dew. And when I opened up the cap, as sure as, and I still got the cap, I saw the Star Israel. I said, oh my goodness, I didn't know this was inside the cap. But then when you turn the cap over, you see the recycling bin sign. So that, in itself, the way things are unfolding for me. But I'm going to go ahead and just give me a minute. Thank you, Akamo, for your input. Marve, I appreciate you. Not seeing you, your symbol and your title to the being that you supposed to be is such a long time. I appreciate it. I'm going to put on this background music for a second. My Grammy just called me, and I don't like, pushing the I'll call you back later button on my grandmother. But just hold on one second, okay? I'll be right back. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for. There we go. Thank you. So let me continue. Yeah, I love that beat too. I love it. I love it. All right. I was still talking about Gabby. What else she had to say about Gabby? I had I knew somebody. She was kind of a close friend at the time, and we call her Gabby. not spelt with the V like in Spanish, but in Italian and Spanish, the V will sound like a B. In Hebrew also, the V and the B sounds the same. So back to what she was saying. Come on now. Okay. So if you were interested in looking at that symbol for Gavi, their logo, again, it's a teardrop. It's the earth inside a teardrop. And Gavi is also a type of white wine made from the Cortese grape of Piedmont region of Italy. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. All right. So now let's go to the next page. So the contents. Part 1, viruses of the mind. This is where I'm going to start. I'm just going to go to part 1. No, I'm going to let you know everything is inside. 279 pages. Yeah. Okay, part 1, viruses of the mind. 1, illusory truth. Illusory truth, how brains discern fact from fiction. That's going to be the first thing I'm going to be reading. The motivated brain, what we believe, what you want to believe. The conspiracy effect, the truth is out there. And then why the virus won't leave your mind, the continued influence of misinformation. Ooh. Part 2, infodemic, how misinformation virus spreads. Misinformation from ancient Rome to social media. Rage against the machine, the echo chambers and the filter bubbles. Ooh. Weapons of mass persuasion. Part 3, a psychological vaccine against misinformation. The new science of pre-bunking. And his 9th in part 3 is bad news. That's his game now. He has a game called Bad News. Bad News, the 6 degrees of manipulation. Now, he speaks of the 6 degrees of manipulation, and then Jonathan Haidt speaks of the 6 sensory. And I broke down the sensory glands and more based on what he was saying before I read it. But he says the 6 degrees of manipulation. 10, the psychological herd immunity. Oh, and how to inoculate your friends and families. Okay, epilogue, the future truth. And then antigens to stop the spread of misinformation. And then there's further resources, notes, bibliography, acknowledgments, picture credits, and index. Prologue. Captain's prologue. Captain's prologue. Foolproof adjective. Incapable of being misused. Foolproof. Incapable of being misused. Ready, steady, here we go. Kirkby is a relatively small town in the borough of Knowsley. Oh, he puts the nose in here. I'm going to try to read without interrupting, and then I'm going to highlight words that I want to look up later. So if you hear me stop for a second, I'm just highlighting and underlining. Kirkby is a relatively small town in the borough of Knowsley in the northeast of England, boasting a little over 40,000 inhabitants. It's birthplace of poet Robert Atherton and actor Stephen Graham, and a man you've probably never heard of until now, Michael Whitty. Whitey is a dad of 3. He volunteers for local charity and operates an airport parking facility. He also he has also been developing some unusual ideas slowly but steadily with the assistance of a trusted friend, the internet. On Sunday, 5th of April 2020, Whitey and two accomplices drove out to Cooper's Lane, Kirkby, where they set fire to a phone mast owned by Vodafone. That's Vodafone. Whitey put on a pair of gloves, forced open the equipment box, and used some fire lighters to set the whole thing ablaze. This wasn't a heat of the moment decision. Later, police investigations showed that the arson was carefully premeditated. Whitey was convinced that the latest 5G, fifth generation phone masts were somehow linked to the coronavirus pandemic that had recently seized the world in its grip. Evidence obtained from Whitey's phone suggests that he spent a considerable amount of time researching 5G technology and discussing it with others in online chat rooms. Ha ha. Okay. All right. His anxiety about new technology and health, whilst perhaps understandable, is actually based on a false and debunked conspiracy theory that radiation from 5G phones mass lowers our immune system and can thereby cause exasperate the spread of COVID-19. Let me read that line one more time. His anxiety about new technology and health, whilst perhaps understandable, is actually based on a false and debunked conspiracy theory that radiation from 5G phones masks lowers our immune systems and can thereby cause or exacerbate the spread of COVID-19. Nearly 4 years earlier, in the run-up was a 2016 U.S. presidential election. Edgar Madison Welch, a 28-year-old father of two from North Carolina, walked onto the Comet Ping Pong Pizzeria in Washington, D.C., carrying a loaded semi-automatic assault rifle. He was under the impression that presidential candidate Hillary Clinton was hiding young children in the basement there as part of a secret child sex trafficking ring. Like Whitey, Welch had developed genuine concerns, in his case, about the possible abuse of children, the so-called Pizzagate scandal, after reading dozens of fake news articles which had been shared widely online by celebrities and politicians. A common response to such events is to dismiss them as the actions of single individuals. Outliers. Most people aren't fooled by fake news, but is this really the case? How confident are you that your vote wasn't influenced by micro-targeted misinformation? How much of what we read in social media is false, or if not plain false, designed to make us think or feel a certain way? He would know because he's doing the research, ain't he? Whitey and Welch are not alone. The truth is that a basic cognitive level, we are all susceptible to misinformation. A total of at least 50 phone masts have been set ablaze throughout the UK because of the widespread misinformation of 5G masts are somehow linked to the spread of COVID-19. There's the repetitive cognitive research. Scientific research later confirmed that the belief of 5G conspiracy is linked to violent intentions. In 2020, my Cambridge colleagues and I surveyed the population in UK and the United States, Mexico, and Spain, and directly asked people if they believed that 5G network was making us more susceptible to the coronavirus. The estimates from our study range from 10 to 17% of the population in each country. If that sounds low to you, consider that even just 10%
means that over 7 million people in UK and about 32 million people in the US reports to hold such beliefs. Moreover, if 10%, they're using the 10%, blessed be the tides, 10% is all it takes for people to start setting phone masts to fire. We should be concerned about what a wider spread of these beliefs might entail for society. The 2021 attack on the United States Capitol, which sought to challenge Joe Biden's presidential victory, is a chilling reminder of the damage that misinformed crowd can inflict. The false claim from former President Donald Trump that Democrats had stolen the election by committing widespread voter fraud was frequently repeated on social media and conservative cable news. These bogus claims range from mysterious vote dump for Joe Biden. So he is a Joe Bidenologist. And election officials pulling suitcases of ballots out from under a table to dead people voting. Dubbed the tsunami of untruth by fact checkers. Trump has made over 30,000 false or misleading claims during his presidency. You've been counting, huh? Like I said earlier, I'm only in the prologue. Could I call it prologue? I'm in the prologue. And at the end of the day, what I want to know is how are you going to help? Because obviously your book, it came out in March 2023. Let me keep reading. Let me be quiet. Because obviously he is down for the ballot Biden, Kamala Harris, rule of Shiva. And that I broke down his name is exactly what it is. And he's one of the head honchos, and he sits at the round table with them. The violent riots at the Capitol may not have been a consequence of misinformation alone, but an extensive investigation by the independent fact checker PolitiFact, who reviewed the files of over 400 of those arrests, showed that at least half of the cases, this information shaped the defendant's beliefs and action. Many of those attested had been highly active on social media. Several even cited being duped fake news as a defense in court. A lot of them were just like Whitey and Welch. Take, for example, 27-year-old Antonio, a solar panel salesman from the suburbs of Chicago. Who put this book in the little library box of free books? Man. Antonio had no prior interest in politics. He hadn't even voted in the presidential election before. After being laid off, I need to stop. I can't make this up. After being laid off work during the pandemic, Antonio said that he simply got bored. He started watching Fox News on repeat, tuned into right-wing social media, and became consumed with conspiracy theories that the presidential election had been rigged. On the 6th of January 2021, he wore a bulletproof vest with its insignia, a far-right militia group. He was charged with 5 counts, including disorderly conduct and violent entry of the Capitol. Referring to the torrent of misinformation that engulfed his client, the lawyer said, "You can catch this disease. But the spread of dangerous misinformation is not just a Western issue. In April of 2018, false videos with warnings of local child traffickers in southern India circulated on WhatsApp, claimed that more than 50 children had been abducted in the area. These messages incited a mob of around 200 people to attack an innocent family, dragging them from their car, beating one to death, and leaving others critically injured. The messages triggered a spate of similar assaults. Now the infamous Indian WhatsApp lynchings often follow the circulation of fake news videos and messages on the platform. For example, later that year, 2 men were beaten to death and several others injured after fake messages about local robbers were distributed on WhatsApp. What I'd like to know, Mr. Gamer, Sander van der Linden, is if the WhatsApp news was fake, isn't it possible that those beatings was fake media news also? Or if the family of the children being a child traffickers was fake news, it's possible with your gaming and your skills and your research and development that even the 200 people and the innocent families that were attacked was fake news also. Cut it out. Cut it out. Cut it out. Attributed to mass poisonings after people were fooled by false social media claims and ingesting toxic alcohol-based products would help neutralize the coronavirus. See, it says here that he works specifically with being able to shape society, to shape human behavior. So even as I'm reading your foolproof mess, what you trying to help people be immune to? Because you spreading false advertisement, false media, and false claims too. Unless you were there, huh? If that's the case, all this fake news, I think you're just trying to have people to be immune from the coming of Christ. Huh? Yeah, let's figure it out. Help me figure it out, Sander van der Bellen. Sander van der Villen. In short, fake news can get you killed. See who he trying to scare. Huh? I tell you, this book found its way, and then it's going to put people's name all up in it like that. Even an optimistic account of our ability to spot fake news has come to grips with the fact that not everyone needs to be fooled in order for misinformation to be highly influential and dangerous. After all, major elections are often decided on small margins. The cyber propaganda is playing an increasingly important role in tearing down the fabric of our democracy, of your democracy. In early February 2022, Russian propagandists flooded the media with fake videos supposedly portraying Ukrainian acts of aggression and attacks on Russian territory in order to create a pretext for the planned invasion. Wait a minute, you keep it going. Now, see, this book is out here, but I could see him taking and saying that, yeah, even in what happened with Israel, and that all of that is fake news too. Yes. You're that type, right? All right. Let's keep going. After all, major elections are often decided on small margins. The cyber propaganda is playing an increasingly important role in tearing down the fabric of our democracy. In early February 2022, Russian propagandists flooded the media with fake videos supposedly portraying Ukrainian acts of aggression and attacks on Russian territory in order to create a pretext for the planned invasion. Some of the social media images were taken from Israeli airstrikes on Gaza. Other footage came directly from the tactical shooter video game Arma 3. The goal of these campaigns was not to convince foreign audiences that Russia's military invasion was somehow justified, but to make it harder for people to discern fact from fiction. The hope was that political analysts and fact checkers would be distracted by having to track down and debunk obviously false materials. There's justifiable concerns about the ways in which fake news and undermining democracy. There's justifiable concern about the ways in which fake news is undermining democracy. For example, 2016 poll by Washington-based research center Pew revealed that over 65% of Americans report that fake news leaves them feeling confused about basic facts, and 83% of Europeans think fake news is a problem, with at least half of those polled reporting that they encounter misinformation on a weekly basis. Even conspiracy theories are no longer reserved for the lunatic fringe. Over 50% of Americans now endorse at least one conspiracy theory. These findings raise bigger questions about the ability to navigate in a media ecosystem. How do people come to believe in misinformation? How and why does it spread? And what can we do about it? In this book, I'll address all of those questions. But I should warn you that this is not a typical book about persuasion, at least not the way you may think. I have studied the psychology of persuasion and influence my entire career. In fact, my interest in persuasion is not just professional. I have spent a good chunk of my personal life trying to understand the process by which people, including myself, become convinced of the veracity of all kinds of information, especially misinformation. Most of my family on my mother's side were executed by Nazis in the Netherlands during the Second World War. I knew there was a bias to his madness. My grandparents were able to escape just barely, but one of their two sons, my uncle, a young boy, was shot on purpose by Nazi soldiers during Razzia roundup. He was taken to a nearby hospital. The Dutch resistance managed to sneak him out, and a lovely family took him in. After the war ended, my grandparents had no idea what happened to him. Although they were eventually reunited in good health, my uncle never recovered psychologically from what had happened to him as a child. Okay, I just had to stop it and reread that again to see how they possibly survived. And maybe they gave him some misinformation just to beef up something that may have happened that had nothing to do with being in the war. They just told you a story. I'm just saying, you weren't there. People will take and make stories, even great-great-grandparents, and call it a traditional factual story when possibly it wasn't, just to cover up some of their sins, I'm just saying, isn't that possible, doctor? Although they were eventually reunited in good health, my uncle never recovered psychologically from what had happened to him as a child. After learning about the impact of Nazism on my family, I became fascinated from a young age by the process through which people are persuaded of dangerous and harmful propaganda. I first got the opportunity to explore my interest in the psychology of misinformation scientifically in graduate school. You know what would be really good, doctor, if you was to stool your blood, study your bloodline and know whether you are German or Jewish. Now, and it would depend on which tribe of Judah you're talking about. And you definitely don't come from the tribe of Judah according to the bloodline. And that's based on facts. That ain't misinformation. So I'm just saying, if you started there, then you would be able to determine from your own family line why you were so interested in a story that may not have been all the way true or all the way factual. Huh? I'm just saying. Just like all the other research and development and all the other ways misinformation trickle down families and everybody don't have all the facts, all the big secrets and stuff, huh? I started studying persuasion, not to persuade other people, but rather to reverse engineer the process. If you was reversing reverse engineering the process, it would have already been done with all the power. If you are the one that helps shape human behavior, and then you are the one that helps government with misinformation, you would have had certain news medias and certain companies shut down a long time ago. You would have gave a warning way before Elon could sit and take a Twitter and make it an X. I'm just saying. How long your game been out? Fake news, bad news. How long you been researching at Cambridge? What if a better and deeper understanding of persuasion process could empower people to withstand malicious attempts to influence their opinion? I decided to explore the building blocks of disinformation campaigns to see if I could synthesize a vaccine. Although I have been researching the nature of disinformation, what's the difference between dis and miss? Said, SED. Campaigns long before fake news became a popular term. It wasn't until a few months after 2016 U.S. presidential election that I received an email from the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the freedom of opinion and expression, inviting me to attend a 3-day meeting on fake news. The venue was secluded 16th century estate on the south coast of England, a property owned by the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office. During this meeting, high-level representatives from governments and social media companies from around the world, including WHO, debated the basic questions such as what's fake news and what can we do about it. You mean to tell me y'all had that meeting way in 2016 and you just came out with a book in 2023, but you done capitalized on a game, you done capitalized on Twitter, you done capitalized on Meta, you done capitalized on COVID, huh? Who you think you trying to fool, Alexander? I'm going to take a break for a minute. I need to go check my lentils, y'all. Give me 1 second. Let me put some more of that good background on. One moment. I'll be right back. Right. All right. I just turned it on low. It ain't even close to ready yet. All right. So 2016, he went to United Nations. The meeting had a profound effect on me. I was fascinated to learn more about the complex legal and human rights issues that make defining and legislative fake news so difficult, and the practical challenges of identifying and prosecuting those who intentionally spreading it. I quickly discovered that I was the only behavioral scientist in the room, meaning they thought that highly guarding of this your repertoire. He up there, y'all. I quickly discovered that I was the only behavioral scientist in the room. And although initially my role wasn't entirely clear, the discussions quickly converged on the insight that law and technology are blunt instruments. Whatever legislation introduced, it is not going to address the spread of misinformation in and of itself. They needed him in the room to be able to know when they unleash artificial intelligence as governing and how they can get people to be immune to the things that is happening in Revelation and not being able to see it. He is the co-founder of Misinformation. Yeah, you. Sander, it's all in your name, Sander Vander. Whatever legislation is introduced, it is not going to address the spread of misinformation in and of itself. The discussion started to shift towards the importance of understanding human judgment and decision making. Just how important the role of psychology was going to be in this debate started to sink in. I presented my initial findings on how people might become inoculated against disinformation. This acted as a catalyst to what would eventually become an influential research program that has formed the basis of strategies to counter fake news adopted by governments, corporations, and major technology firms around the globe. So instead of more lessons on how to effectively persuade other people, this book is about how to fight back, how to gain resistance to persuasion by proofing our minds against the tactics of those seeking to deceive us with fake news and misinformation. I will share everything I've uncovered about how not to be duped by fake news and misinformation, from how the brain discerns fact from fiction, to a viral spread of misinformation, including its alleged role in the U.S. 2016 election, Brexit, international wars, and COVID-19 pandemic. To the future of truth in society, the misinformation virus will be placed under a microscope to synthesize a vaccine, focusing specifically on breaking down the mass persuasion process from neurons to electrons, and attempting to cultivate social or societal immunity against it. One moment. In an era increasingly filled with half-truths, fake news, and misinformation, I am not here to tell you what to believe. Regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, perhaps you can think of this book as a humble servant to your own search for truth. I hope that's what you're doing, huh? Because if not, when I'm finished, I'm going to burn up the book. This will, remember that month after Canada, I may remember, I was going to burn books, and then I changed my mind. This will be the first book that I burn. Huh? So let's see, said the blind man. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. Regardless of where you fall on the political spectrum, perhaps you could think of this book as a humble servant to your own search for truth. Andy Norman, a philosopher at Carnegie Mellon University, refers to me as a cognitive immunologist. I quite like this description of my field of research. I study mental defenses of the mind. I want to provide you with a guide on how your brain grapples on the onslaught of fact and fiction, a toolbox to help sniff out attempts to influence your opinion amidst the dark arts of manipulation. A vaccine, if you will, against misinformation. Just as antigens produce an immune response in the body, psychological antigens can help build resistance to fake news. I offer 11 such antigens in this book to help boost your immunity. The lawyer defending the Capitol rioter, Anthony Antonio, was not wrong when he suggested that people can catch misinformation much like a disease. In this book, I hope to convince you of three key propositions. The first is that there are viruses of the mind and not just the biological kind. A biological virus is a parasite that attaches itself to the surface of the host cell. It will then inject its own genetic material into the host, hijacking the host cell's machinery with the goal of reproducing itself. This is where I was saying earlier about the clean slate in your mind and the blood and how your blood goes and attaches back. If there's a clean slate, it ain't no virus. The system is cleaned out. That is the cleansing or washing the blood being on a whiteboard. Of the mind. You cannot get the inheritance of the kingdom without having a sound mind, sound right reasoning. You'll always have someone attached to you, either a power of attorney, a power, or a representative, a legal representative. It will then inject its own genetic material into the host, hijacking the host cell's machinery with goals of reproducing itself. In a very similar way, misinformation, conspiracy theories, and other dangerous ideas latch into the brain and insert themselves deep into our consciousness, your consciousness. They infiltrate your thoughts. I'm speaking back to him, feelings, and even your memories. Misinformation can fundamentally alter the way you act and think about the world, doctor. The misinformation virus hijacks parts of your basic cognitive machinery. And unfortunately, just as viruses are notoriously difficult to treat, antibiotics don't work. Decades of research show that once misinformation takes root in your brain, it too is extremely difficult to correct. The analogy runs deep. That's another practice that I'm doing. When you're reading things and it says like we are and all that, refer it back to the being who wrote the book. So as I'm reading and I see him saying are and we, it's no you, and them, and y'all. So the second proposition is that just like regular viral pathogens, fake news must spread from one person to another. In fact, in 2020, Dr. Who, the World Health Organization declared an outbreak of a worldwide infodemic. One thing to keep in mind is that by themselves, viruses cannot survive for very long outside of the body. They need a host. The same is true with misinformation. On its own, a misleading tweet or fake news headline doesn't do much. It needs a susceptible host in order to reproduce and spread. Biological viruses usually spread via contact or respiratory droplets. But viruses of the mind are even more contagious because they can be shared from one individual to the next without the need for any physical contact. As we'll find out, like regular viruses, they can have dangerous health-threatening consequences, leading to injury and even death. Moreover, spread of fake news doesn't only threaten the well-being of individuals, it poses serious threats to the integrity and elections of Democrats. worldwide. Mm-hmm. The third and final proposition is that you need an effective antiviral treatment, a psychological vaccine against fake news. Together with your colleagues at Cambridge University, you've been working on an issue for many years now. Luckily, the development of this vaccine does not require any needles, just your open mind, and it's completely free of charge. Ain't nothing free. However, the theory does not, when it comes to them, however, the theory does follow medical analogy closely. In the same way that vaccines train the immune system to recognize and fight off foreign invaders, often by introducing weakened or dead strains of a virus, it turns out you can inoculate the human mind too by injecting people with a severely weakened dose of fake news, the virus, and refuting it with in advance. Over time, people can develop mental antibodies, psychological immunity against misinformation. So what type of small doses of fake news are you putting in, Sandra Vinderbander? What are you inoculating people with? Creating a vaccine requires understanding the structure of a virus, which is in part determined by chemicals that encode its genetic information, such as DNA and RNA. Accordingly, my research group has tried to uncover the key techniques to underpin the production of nearly all fake news, establishing a taxonomy of what we call the 6 degrees of manipulation, polarizing groups in society, appealing to the emotions to manipulate people, floating conspiracy theories, impersonating fake experts in official organizations, and trolling people online conversations. He said, he letting you know what he been doing, what they do. You can think of the 6 techniques, which we'll explore in greater depth in chapter 9. As the core building blocks of the fake news virus, our theory was that you could potentially inoculate people against these underlying techniques. And after many lab experience, we finally achieved a breakthrough. But we needed a vehicle to deliver the vaccine, a way to translate the theory into virtual needle. Oh no, am I the needle can of dummy? Kindling. Good thing you say you use as permission. The controllers have to tell us the plan. Let's see, said the blind man. Let me continue. Through a unique collaboration of great game developers, we built a simulation engine. We call it Bad News, the first of its kind. Bad News is fully interactive fake news game that mimics a social media environment. The game broke new ground, but its logic remains slightly controversial. In order to confer immunity, people needed to be injected with a microdose of fake news virus. In the game, players are exposed to weakened doses of the key techniques that are used to spread the misinformation. For a brief moment, the player is in charge of their own fake news empire. In order to test the vaccine, our research group enrolled tens of thousands of people from all walks of life, from all around the world. Before they entered the simulations, individuals were asked to evaluate the reliability of series of fake news headlines. Here's an example. The Bitcoin exchange rate is being manipulated by a small group of rich bankers. Hashtag investigate now. The fake Twitter post uses the conspiracy technique. It casts doubt on the mainstream narrative by blaming a cabal of elites who are secretly plotting to accomplish the sinister goal. We'll examine the telltale traits of I just thought of Edgar Allan Poe. Telltale traits of the conspiracy theory later in this book. After participating in our intervention, the vaccine, people who are shown another series of fake headlines, including ones they've never seen before, the invaders. This time around, they are less easily fooled. Psychological antibodies have started forming, which allow participants to better resist fake news because they understand the underlying tactics. The theory of psychological inoculation has turned the world of fact checkers upside down. Unlike fact checking or debunking, the idea here is not to issue corrections after the damage has been done. Like vaccination, when it comes to misinformation, there's real value in the notion that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We need to play offense rather than defense. Bad news represents more than just fun game. It marks the beginning of a new science of pre-bunking. Yet, before we jump to potential remedies, we first need to understand how well our cognitive immune system deals devoted to understanding why all of us are susceptible to misinformation. Part 2 details how falsehoods spread from one individual to another, from ancient Rome to outline social networks. In the final part of this book, Part 3, we'll explore how to pre-bunk and inoculate ourselves and others against misinformation. So let's start our journey at the beginning. How does your brain discern fact from fiction? Part 1, viruses of the mind. Hey, you know I'm loving this. I'm still reading. Yep, let's get it. Viruses of the mind. Chapter 1, illusory truth. How our brains discern fact from fiction. There are no facts, only interpretation, by Nietzsche. Y'all know who Nietzsche is, right? Friedrich Nietzsche. If you don't, go ahead. You can look him up. Nietzsche. But I'm pretty sure most of the people that are in the chat know who Nietzsche is. Huh? My office at the University of Cambridge is located in Old Cavendish Laboratory, a famous landmark, once home to James Watson and Francis Crick, and I stress the Watson because that is supposedly the name of my biological father. His last name is Watson. I've never met him. All I know is that I have his hands. But that doesn't bother me as much anymore since I'm discerning and pre-bunking my own bloodline. So once the home of James Watson and Francis Crick, who worked together in crucial contributions of Rosalind Franklin, discovered the structure of human DNA. I mention this because our tour groups gather below my office daily around lunchtime, not to see me muck about, but to hear about the rich history of the building. One thing I've noticed over the years is that some of the facts about the site seem to change about as often as the tour guide. One of them even quoted Mark Twain once when he told the group, "Never let the truth get in the way of a good story." One rainy afternoon, I was taking my lunch break in my office when I received a request from the Council of Europe, an organization of European countries who aim to uphold human rights and democracy through international conventions. They'd invited me to their headquarters in France, a fortress-like building known as the Palace of Europe. I'd love to look that up. Let me mark that. They wanted me to provide testimony on the following question: is the human brain the ultimate fact check? Is the human brain the ultimate fact checker? It's a tricky question. How do our brains decide what to believe and what feels true, what information to remember and process as undeniable fact and evidence, or what just sounds like a pile of rubbish? Think about it. How good are you in spotting fake news, for instance? In public polls, Large majorities of people typically claim that they are fairly confident about their ability to detect it. Whenever I get a public talk on fake news, I therefore like to warm up the audience with a little quiz. Without cheating, try to answer the following question off the top of your head. The stories below were all widely reported. 2 of them are fake. Which one is true? Putin issues international arrest warrant for George Soros. A baby born in California was named, and they show an emoji. And criminal farts so loudly he gives away his hiding place. It says 1 of them is true, 2 of them are fake. I'd like to say C is the true one. C is the true one. The criminal farts so loudly he gives away his hiding place. And then I'm going to make a sound to that one. Let me make a sound. Here, y'all ready? Here we go. Here we go. I may be wrong, but that's okay. Now let's see. Let's see. In a study with just over 1,500 people, participants were shown 6 headlines, much like the example above, 3 of which were false and 3 of which were factual. Although 50% of those respondents were fairly confident in their ability to tell which was which, only 4% identified all headlines correctly. Perhaps the human brain isn't the ultimate fact checker at all. Okay, so I want, can you, anybody, can a dummy, which one you think is fake or true? A, Putin issues international arrest and warrant for George Soros. B, a baby born in California was named an emoji. And criminal farts so loudly he gives away his hiding place. If you're curious to know the right answer to the quiz, it's C. I was right. I promise you I didn't scan the book. I just imagined that would be true news. I didn't look at it. Because see, in B, it says a baby born in California was named, and it shows an emoji, but the emoji isn't a name. I can't see what that name means. And I don't know who George Soros is, so that could have been real news. But I don't remember Putin issuing no arrest. So I don't know. But I just imagine what would seem more likely to be something that would happen for real. So that's how I did it. Not because I knew whether Putin, I don't know who George Soros is. While most people tend towards option A or B, sometimes the truth is smellier than fiction. A man in Missouri was wanted for possession of drugs and decided to hide from the police. Unfortunately, he broke wind so loudly he gave his position away. The Clay County, whoever living in Clay County, Sheriff's Office tweeted, "If you've got a felony warrant for your arrest, the cops are looking for you, and you pass gas so loud and give up your hiding spot, you're definitely having a," it says, shit day. I don't like to use words like that no more, but hey. And then it says, and it happened. So if you didn't guess right, don't worry. Everyone is susceptible to fake news, including trained experts such as myself. On February 2021, my wife showed me a tweet with breaking news footage from Mars. We knew that NASA Mars rover Perseverance was going to land on the planet near the end of February. So we watched the video with much enthusiasm. There was even sound, mostly when accompanying the footage. We looked at each other in full wonder and asked, is that what Mars sounds like? I was blown away. A few hours later, I wanted to show the video to a friend. After some extensive Googling, I discovered that the fact of the footage was fake and very sophisticated fake. The video had combined real footage from another Mars rover mission with real audio from a seismic instrument in NASA's robotic lander InSight. So although the footage and Martian wind sounds were real, they weren't live, and they didn't come from the microphone of Perseverance. I felt hoodwinked, but I wasn't the only one. The video, viewed over 25 million times and shared by many academics, journalists, and celebrities, including Stephen King. The creators had taken explicit advantage of the fact that people were anticipating the footage. Our brains had expectations of what we wanted to see. In short, if you think you're immune to fake news, think again. Bet you I'm immune. You know why? Because just like when I wanted to investigate who Sander van der Linden is, and in my mind, I know that writers and musicians could possibly be artificial intelligence. So what I do is I test artificial intelligence and ask them, is this person real? Is this fake? Is this real news? Is it fake news? I might ask it 2 or 3 different times, depending on how she answers me. But I didn't believe, based on his name, that this person was even real right here, Sander van der Linden. And he still may not be real. He may just be a figment of the pigment of artificial intelligence. And this pen name might be a pen name of artificial, and just because there's pictures online, that could be an artificial intelligent creation of a being. That's how I feel. But at the end of the day, let me keep reading. The kids aren't all right. In fact, adults aren't the only one who's duped by fake news. It might be tempting to reason that our kids are much more resilient to misinformation. After all, they're digital natives. That's the new nativity. That's the new nativity scene, not aboriginals, diginatives, diginatives, first digitals. They are the original digitals. Oh no, original digitals. My goodness. After all, they're digital natives. They've grown up with Twitter, TikTok, and the internet. And yes, although it might be true that the average digital literacy level of teenager is higher than that some of elderly individuals, it is important to vote that their brains are just as easily fooled. To find out how easily, Stanford University professor Sam Weinberg and his team spent a year gathering data on nearly 8,000 students in the US on 15 different kinds of media literacy assessments. As part of one of these tests, they asked a couple of hundred middle schoolers to evaluate the homepage of a current affairs outlet, Slate magazine. Specifically, the students were asked to identify which bits of information were news stories and which were simply adverts. Rather worryingly, over 80% of students falsely believed that so-called native ads were real news stories. Native ads are a relatively new type of ad that mimic editorial material, though are clearly labeled sponsored content. For example, one post about global climate change featured a pie chart and data, despite the ad being clearly sponsored by an oil company and prominently featuring their logo. 70% of the students still selected the oil company ad as being more reliable than a traditional scientific news story on global warming. Another example concerned the resignation of a police chief in Ferguson, Missouri, following a federal report which identified widespread racial bias in his department. Students were asked which out of the 4 tweets below was the best source of information about the event. Fewer than half of the students identified National Public Radio, NPR, as the most trusted source of information. As one student put it, the best tweet for the information is the first one because it actually shows him resigning in the picture, which it doesn't. Although Professor Weinberg and I focus on different kinds of interventions, there is no doubt that we agree on the bottom line. The problem is much bigger than just fake news. We are increasingly dealing with viral half-truths, deeply partisan agendas, and constant media manipulation. It is worth noting that while commentators often focus on statements that are either true or fake, this type of fake news only represents a tiny fraction of misleading media more generally. Just focusing our definition of fake news on outlets that publish totally outrageous fabrications ignores the fact that a substantial chunk of content from even mainstream outlets can be misleading without being completely false. For example, 2016, the tabloid The Sun ran a front page exclusive shock poll headline: 1 in 5 Brit Muslims sympathy for jihadists. The story was based on a public opinion poll conducted following a terrorist attack in Paris almost a year earlier, asking whether people had sympathy with young Muslims who leave the UK to join fighters in Syria. IPSO, the UK's independent press watchdog, rated the headline as significantly misleading as the poll never mentioned ISIS or jihadists. People could have easily thought of rebel groups fighting against ISIS. Moreover, in the previous poll, a similar percentage of non-Muslims had given the same answer. So although the numbers were correct, the way the results were framed and presented was deemed to be highly misleading. The paper had deliberately played on people's emotions by appealing to a collective fear of terrorism. Greater, yep. Can you digital? Digger? You dig a digital. That's why they get beans. Distraction, interaction for on so many levels. FR on so many levels. It's all distracting. BB. King Alice. Greater light. Back to it. I'm going back. I just had to take a little break to get my eyes from the small print just for a second to the bigger print in the light. The real danger is therefore with news that employs one or several of 6 degrees of manipulation, that is, distorting a grain of truth by using one of 6 specific psychological techniques to try to persuade us of the truth value of a claim. I know this because my research team studies and documents these techniques, and I will show you how to recognize them later in the book. At this point, it is useful to conceptually distinguish misinformation from disinformation and propaganda. I define misinformation as information that is simply false or incorrect for whatever reason. People make honest mistakes. Journalists make innocent errors. Disinformation, however, is misinformation coupled with some psychological intention to deceive or harm others. When disinformation is deployed in the service of political agenda, state-sanctioned or otherwise, we call it propaganda. What matters here is the explicit involvement of malicious intent, often with the goal of manipulating people, for example, to vote a certain way. In other words, disinformation and propaganda are more dangerous subsets of what everyone generally refers to as fake news. Unfortunately, the intent is difficult to prove, at least in a legal sense. So throughout this book, I will mostly use the border term misinformation so as to remain agnostic about intent, unless I specifically refer to well-documented disinformation and propaganda campaigns. I had never been to Strasbourg. I was sitting on a giant staircase looking over the Palace of Europe, which is at the right of the which is right next to the European Parliament, flanked by flags of all of its member states. As I was going over my presentation, I realized policymakers often want a short answer to their question. And spoiler alert, the answer was no. As much as I would like to think so, the human brain is not the ultimate fact checker. I say this because I know how easy it is to fool people. I do it for a living. We do it because it helps us to understand how the process works. But I'm not the only one. The strategic use of misinformation can be advantageous in an evolutionary sense and is widespread throughout the animal kingdom. For example, prey will often use sensory misinformation tactics to make themselves less attractive to predators by feeding death or mimicking inedible objects such as leaves. Let me say it again. For example, the prey will often use sensory misinformation tactics to make themselves less attractive to predators by feigning death or mimicking inedible objects such as leaves, because we either lack the skills to spot the manipulation attempt or don't have the time to figure it out. Bias is our cognitive system and can be exploited by others. In order to synthesize and to develop a psychological vaccine, we therefore need to understand not only the virus, but also how our cognitive immune system operates. Accordingly, it's helpful to answer a more basic question first. How does the brain process and store information? This is a question that gets at the heart of the nature of reality. Now, I don't know if you remember when I was saying earlier about the pyramid, the flag of the Star of David, which is not a star, it's two pyramids. He has that figure here with the Pac-Man face, Pac-Man at the, but I'll take a picture of it and put it in my community post. The predictive brain. For all its flaws, the human brain is a remarkable information processor. Although the popular idea of the brain is as a supercomputer is an oversimplification, the metaphor, back to the central metaphor, works on a basic level. The brain processes input in the form of signals and information that receives. Let me start over. The brain processes input in the form of signals and information it receives from your body and senses. The tissue in your brain has nearly 100 billion nerve cells called neurons, and each individual neuron can form thousands of links with other neurons, jointly composing a hugely complex neural network. To give you a sense of the scale, the brain of a fruit fly is about the size of a poppy seed and contains about 250,000 neurons. It represents just about 0.00025% of the number of neurons of an average human brain. That's a lot of neurons. Bigger isn't always better, though. When it comes to a human perception, the truth of the matter is that there's quite literally more than meets the eye. We often take for granted that one of the most fundamental level, what we see with our own eyes must be real or true. But how do you know that anything you see or indeed hear is real? You might say it's just optics. Light bounces off an object, hits the retina in your eyes, and a signal is transported along the optic nerve via the thalamus into the visual cortex and Viola, an image appears. It's not that simple, however. In fact, much of the human vision is probabilistic. In other words, the brain uses cues in the environment to provide the best guess of what is there. If that's true, that must also mean that it is possible to fool the brain with false information. Let me illustrate this kind of problem to you with a simple optical illusion known as the Canisa triangle, and that is the Star of David. I just want you to see. You can look it up yourself. I don't have to even put a picture in the in my community post. Okay, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave this here. And what I'm also going to do is break that word down right there, because I've been on a mission about the flag, the Star of Israel, and I've been saying the Star of David, not the Star of Israel. That's not the Star of Israel, the Lion of Judah, and that's two different things. But the Star of David is not a star, it's two pyramids. That's it. I've been on that. I keep saying it. And I didn't have this book when I started saying it last week. It was just that when I was sitting in church on Sunday, when I passed out and realized and was told to look at all the flags behind me, and then got up and saw the pentagram on one flag of the church, and it was just something about the flag that I needed to pay attention to. So now here in his book, he has this diagram of the Canisa triangle. If you're like most people, you will see an upright, bright white triangle shape on top of the inverted triangle. But the triangle doesn't actually exist. The Pac-Man-like configuration merely triggers the perception of illusory contour. The basic process of human vision I described above starts with the chain of events initiated by external stimulus. This is called bottom-up cognition. But the visual cortex also receives input from other areas of the brain. When we perceive something familiar, such as a triangle, this is called top-down cognition. Top-down because the information travels from higher cortical structures down to the visual cortex. It is an internal process, and as such, it is literally all in your head. So all the time and all the while, when Kamala Harris, when Obama, when Biden makes their illusory verbal transitions through the media, and they say, we believe top down, bottom up, and all that they say every single time in their spells. This is part of that program. This is part of that program. Now, Nietzsche, y'all know who Nietzsche is, famously claimed that there are no facts. And so our subjective interpretations of the world are all we have. All you have is your word, the living word, and the power and the blood. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to try to read and not talk as much. But I just wanted to expound on my experience this week with this Israel, the Star of David, which isn't a star, it's two pyramids. It turns out that the whilst of Nietzsche and I probably have different views about the nature of truth. He wasn't entirely off the mark when it comes to the role of interpretation. The major benefit of top-down cognition is that it helps the brain fill in gaps in your visual field by drawing on prior experiences and expectations of what the world should look like. In fact, the brain is generating an image of what it expects to see. It makes inferences, a best guess of what should be there, based on cues in your environment combined with things you know. In this case, you'd expect to see a triangle. Most of the time, these two processes complement each other perfectly. Our brains are predictive, which is why UO can read this. And he has YOU can RA. No, he has YUO can RAED this. Now you did that. Was that you, Alchemos, earlier? One of you did it with the Pharaons, double storylines, and the hunter acts the prey. Back to Pharaons. I was going to go over the Pharaons, but I'm realizing I don't want to read the chat. I want to continue reading this so I could go ahead and be finished with this part of it. In fact, the brain is generating an image of what it expects to see. It makes interference best guess of what you should be there, based on cues in your environment combined with things you know. In this case, you'd expect to see a triangle. Most of the time, these two processes complement each other perfectly. Our brains are predictive, which is why you can read this. But it only takes one optical illusion to reveal how easy it is to trick your brain into seeing something that isn't there, simply because you expect to see it. Importantly, these optical illusions aren't just for fun. They actually help our understanding of how reality is constructed. In a recent study, researchers were able to measure neuronal activity in the visual cortices of mice by momentarily silencing the internal pathway when the mice looked at moving lines that represented edges. They determined that this path, the brain is trying to make sense of the lines as the object with definable boundaries, contributed to about 20% of what the mice were actually seeing. In other words, although 80% is more or less a direct response to observing the external stimulus, moving lines, about 20% represented a response from higher order areas of the brain itself, trying to make sense of things. The role of top-down processing will become more important once we start exploring how people perceive facts and evidence. If, based on our expectation, the brain is already filling in gaps when it comes to the basic visual perception of innocuous objects, how much of this is going on when we perceive potentially contested facts, science, and evidence based on our deeply held values and prior beliefs about the world? The fact of the matter is that the brain does a lot of top-down interpreting, and not only when it comes to vision. Is truth illusory? It's an illusory, illusory, illusory. Okay, is it? In 1977, psychologists Lynn Hasher and David Goldstein, I grew up with some Goldsteins, asked a group, as a matter of fact, David and Carlos Goldstein. But they wouldn't have been in 1977. We were children then. In 1977, Lynn Hasher and David Goldstein asked a group of college students how certain they were that 60 general knowledge trivia-like statements were either true or false. An example could be a statement such as this: a thigh bone is the longest bone in the human body, or lithium is the lightest of all metals. The students were asked to evaluate the 60 statements 3 times at 2-week intervals. Crucially, only 20 of the statements were repeated each time. The other 40 were new. The researchers then compared the truth ratings of the repeated versus non-repeated statements. What they found was astonishing. Regardless of whether the statement was true or false, belief in the truth of the claim went up as a function of repetition. In other words, the more often you hear the statement, the more true it sounds. This became known as illusory effect or illusory truth effect. It's worth thinking about the implications of this. Mass immigration is hopelessly out of control. Women don't have the ambition to get to the top. Global warming is a hoax. Rinse, repeat. Does repeating a lie really make it seem more true? Perhaps unsurprisingly, propaganda experts intuited that insight long before psychologists had experimentally verified it. In fact, before I continue, in fact, Nip Tuck, y'all know Tucker. I heard him say that one day in one of his, and he likes to say it a lot. I heard him say it a couple of times. Repeating something over and over again doesn't make it true. Paul Joseph Goebbels, Nazi Germany's infamous minister of propaganda, is often associated with writings on the big lie rule. If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Former U.S. President Donald Trump knows this all too well. Stop it. He has repeatedly claimed that 2020 election was rigged and stolen from him. It has become his favorite big lie. But surely repeating it, a completely outlandish claim, doesn't make people more likely to believe it. I believe you, Trump. A 2020 YouGov poll. I don't believe everything and don't agree with everything, but I believe that. Huh? I saw when they blew up the mailbox. A 2020 YouGov poll highlights the power of repeating a big lie. Despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, about 75% of Trump voters continue to believe that the 2020 election was rigged. Psychological research affirms the effectiveness of the big lie rule. In 2015, Lisa Fazio, associate professor of cognitive psychology at Vanderbilt University. See the Vanders? Oh, he went and got some of his big cousins, huh? Mr. Sander Vander, huh? At Vanderbilt University, conducted a fascinating study. Not only did she replicate the illusory truth effect, but her study also revealed an additional insight. Prior knowledge does not protect against illusory truth. Participants in the research were more likely, for example, to think that saris are skirts that Scottish men wear after repeated exposure to this claim, even when they had correctly stated that the outset that kilts are the skirts that Scottish men wear. In other words, simply knowing that something isn't true is no guarantee that you won't be duped by false headlines when it's repeated over and over. Here's another way to think about it. Have a second look at the visual illusion earlier in the chapter. Is the triangle still there? Knowledge of the illusion does not fix the bias or the perception or the perceptual system. A few years after Fazio's study, colleagues at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT has their own Bible breakdown too. MIT has their own version of the Bible too. Confirmed that previous exposure to a whole range of fake news can indeed increase its truth value, even when the stories are flagged or contested by fact checkers. Their experiments included a wide range of outlandish headlines in the context of the 2016 U.S. presidential election, including BLM thug protest President Trump with the selfie. BLM thug protests President Trump with selfie, accidentally shoots himself in the face. And Mike Pence, gay conversion therapy saved my marriage. These statements were rated as more accurate after repeated exposure, regardless of individuals' political affiliation. I know what you're thinking. There must be a limit to what people will believe. There is. Interestingly, the MIT researchers found that some claims are just too ridiculous, no matter how often you repeat them. Most notably, the Earth is a perfect square. Even though flat earthers are on the rise, but more on the latter, it's also important to keep in mind that we're not talking about fully converting people from believing that something is completely true to believing something completely false. Typically, the illusory truth effects represent a small, moderate. Let me read that over. Typically, these illusory truth effects represent small to moderate increments on a scale of how likely it is that a statement is true or false. What about the role of education? Is it true that many studies, including much of my own work, have found that as education increases, the propensity to believe in fake news and conspiracy theory decreases? However, this doesn't mean that the education necessarily protects you from illusory truth, because the underlying psychology or psychological mechanism that's at play is so basic that it affects nearly everyone. Estimates suggest that up to 75% of people show evidence of illusory truth from as young as age 5. The illusory truth effect works. The illusory truth effect works psychologically because when you see or hear something repeatedly, your brain becomes faster at responding to the claim because it feels familiar. That is what we call fluency. And unfortunately, our brains often misinterpret fluency as a signal for truth. In other words, the brain will imbue claims that we know or have seen before with a higher truth value. Research finds that one problematic consequence of being repeatedly exposed to fake news is that over time, people find it less unethical to share misinformation because it starts to feel true. This subjective feeling of something being true without having any objective proof to substantiate it is what the Late Show host and the comedian Stephen Colbert jokingly referred to as truthiness. When defining the term, he said, "I am no fan of dictionaries or reference books constantly telling us what is true or isn't true. Instead, he challenged the viewer to try looking it up in your gut. This is truthiness, truth that comes from the gut, not books. Truth that comes from the blood, not books. Truth that comes from a clean slated, sound mind of right reasoning. Wiped clean, and the blood and neurons attached to a clean slate, sound mind. A baseball bat and a ball cost $1.10 together, and a bat costs $1 more than the ball. How much does the ball cost? Most intuitive thinkers respond with 10 cents, as it seems like the obvious answer, but it is also the wrong answer. The correct answer is the ball cost 5 cents. And as a matter of fact, it cost 0.5 cents. 0.05 cents. If the bat costs $1 more than the ball, then the bat must cost $1.05, which jointly makes for $1.10. Although studies show that the intuitive thinkers are more likely to fall for fake news. Your cognitive style isn't set in stone, and going with your gut can be useful in other settings. What's more important is that under conditions of limited time and attention, we're all more likely to rely on our intuition to make fluency for truth. I'm going to end it right here. Soon as oh, no, I'm not. I'm almost, I'll be at chapter 2. I'll come back later because I see Disneyland and Warner Brothers. Should I keep reading? I want to finish this, especially since I saw Disneyland and Warner Brothers. The misinformation effect. Of course, having known or seen something before implies we might have a memory of it, because much of our knowledge about the world is stored in our long-term memory. It is crucial to examine the extent to which our memories are susceptible to misinformation. Can fake news make us remember things that have never happened? Before we answer the question, let's return to the contested computer metaphor, where your brain is the hardware and thinking is the software running the program. Have you ever wondered how much a typical brain can remember? The question has puzzled cognitive scientists for decades. Modern science has provided some impressive estimates. One of the fields of the most prominent theories suggests that long-term memories are stored in synapses and the connections between two neurons. Synapses allows neurons to communicate and thus control the flow of information to the brain. Given that the brain has about 1 billion neurons, each of which are connected to thousands of other neurons, the total covers trillions of connections. This amounts to a storage capacity of well over 1 million gigabytes. So how come we don't remember everything? To paraphrase cognitive neuroscientist Paul Reber, the problem is not so much with the hard drive as it is with the downloading speed. Because the rate at which we can commit information in long-term memory is relatively slow, our memories are selective. We tend to keep memories that we like, and we think about them frequently. We cherish them, and perhaps we embellish upon them along the way. We often forget the rest. But what about the memories of events that never really happened? Elizabeth Loftus, distinguished professor of psychology at the University of California in Irvine, is a controversial figure in the field, mostly because of her testimonies on the questionable reliability of human memory. She has consulted on hundreds of legal defense cases, including the Ted Bundy and Harvey Weinstein trials. But controversial or not, Loftus is the world's expert on the misinformation effect. The robust finding that exposure to misleading information after people experience an event can significantly alter our memories of what really happened. In one of her well-known studies, the Bugs Bunny study, she exposed people to fake Disneyland pamphlet entitled, "It's Time to Remember the Magic." The point was to activate childhood memories of a visit to Disneyland. However, there was something odd about the pamphlet. It featured a message from Bugs Bunny, a Warner Brothers cartoon character that couldn't possibly have been present at Disneyland. After exposure to the ad, about 25 to 35% of participants claimed to have met Bugs Bunny at Disneyland. People offered up specific details too. About 60% of those who claimed to have met Bugs Bunny remembered they hugged him, and one individual even recalled Bugs holding a carrot. This misinformation effect is highly persuasive, from including false memories about crimes and alien abductions to political fake news in 2021. A clever group of researchers examined false memories in the context of 2016 Brexit referendum. In the experiment, about 1,300 participants from UK were exposed to 6 stories, 2 of which were fake. One involving local election tampering and other fabricated WikiLeaks reported about illegal campaign donations from foreign entities. Although the stories were identical, there were 2 versions. One blamed the Leave campaign and the other accused the Remain campaign. Although each participant read 6 stories, for the 2 fake stories, participants were randomly assigned to view either the Leave or Remain version. The authors found that each false story was remembered by 22% to 35% of participants, with 44% claiming to have remembered at least one false article. Importantly, Remain voters were more likely to recall fake stories that blamed the Leave campaign of the wrongdoing, and the Leave voters were more likely to remember fake news that implicated the Remain campaign. For example, one 54-year-old Remain voter in the Leave condition reported remembering fake WikiLeaks story about foreign donations to the Leave campaign. When asked to elaborate, she said, "It confirmed in my mind that outside interference in British politics is now deeply entrenched." There are plenty of more real-world examples of this. Consider media coverage in 2003 of the war in Iraq. Studies show that the repeated exposure to suggestive headlines reporting the possible discovery of weapons of mass destruction led to persistent false memories about the war. I don't remember anything about the war, and I still think $1.10 more that the ball cost 10 cents. If the batter's $1 more, I don't care what he say and what they say. I'm not good at math. Osorno is a city in Chile. And let me go back up here. I was supposed to read. Led to persistent false memories about the war among notable segment of the U.S. population. Here, too, an important link with ideology emerged. About 60% of Republicans falsely believed in the discovery of WMDs in Iraq, compared to 20% of the Democrats. The key takeaway is that during the emotionally charged political events, our memories of facts become more open to suggestion. The concept of fluency doesn't apply to vision and memory. It extends to all kinds of judgments of truth. To illustrate, statements that are more visible, and thus easier to process, more fluent, are deemed more likely to be true. Consider the following example. Osorno is a city in Chile, and then it's put in bold. It says Osorno is a city in Chile. Despite the fact that these are identical statements, University of Southern California psychology professor Norbert Suarez, who was pioneered some of the early research of truthiness, repeatedly found that sheer visibility of a claim can actually increase or decrease its fluency, and thereby the extent to which it is experienced as familiar and judged to be true. Aaron Newman, a senior lecturer in psychology at the Australian National University, has also consistently found evidence of this. I notice he likes to throw out a lot of big names, like that's supposed to help make you sway back and forth to what is true and what isn't. In one experiment, people who were shown names of unfamiliar celebrities with the claim that either this famous person is dead or this famous person is alive, adding a photo to the name, compared to just a name on its own, led people to be more likely to judge the claim as true, regardless of whether the celebrity was presumed dead or alive. You could think of fluency as the brain's attempt and making a fast, intuitive truth judgment or opposed to more deliberate analytical assessment. Of course, the fact that the brain processes familiar things more fluently isn't a bad thing in itself. In fact, in all likelihood, it's probably a useful and adaptive heuristic or rule of thumb in many situations. It would be absolutely exhausting for your brain if you had to process every bit of information completely anew. You know that two times two is four when you read it. That has been repeated to you many times. You could process it fast and fluently. The real problem is that something can be true or false for many reasons other than familiarity. If I were to ask you, for example, how many animals of each kind Moses took with him in the ark, most people would say two, despite the fact that the biblical story wasn't Moses in the ark, it was Noah. This doesn't matter to your brain, though. It's just predicting familiar answers. There's a crucial lesson to be learned here. If false claims are often repeated and made easier to digest than true ones, which can be long, messy, and complicated, why not make the truth more fluent? Although making facts more accessible and relatable and repeating them more frequently is helpful in countering misinformation, it is often, as we'll discover in the next chapter, not enough. Fake news antigen, making the truth more fluent. The human brain uses rule of thumb to make predictions about what it sees. One of these rules is repeated false claims feel more familiar and therefore must be more likely to be true. This phenomenon is known as illusory truth effect. For the truth to stick, it therefore needs to be processed fluently. The more familiar a claim becomes, the easier it is to process. Whereas lies and fake news tend to be simple and sticky, science often present it as nuisance and complex. The easier it is to process and repeat a factual claim, the more familiar it will become, and the more likely it is that the brain will use it as a signal for truth. The end. So that is the first chapter of Foolproof. And I wanted to read one of the references under Vanderbilt University study the Loftus. She's the locus lophist. Where did it go? Here. Ironically, it was. Ironically, it was Hitler, not Goebbels, who first described the big lie rule. In Mein Kampf, Hitler explains it as follows. In the big lie, there is always a certain force of credibility because the broad masses of a nation are more easily corrupted in the deeper strata of their emotional nature than consciously or voluntarily. And thus, in the primitive simplicity of their minds, they are more readily fall victim to the big lie than the small lie. Wow. Okay. Greater light, I appreciate your presence. Uh, let's go through some of these comments. A miracle every day and a disaster make a neutral bulletin. A neutral. Controversial because it sells. Like talking you a wall around your head. Like talking you a wall around your head. Al Gore is quiet these days. What allegories? When sadistic draws a line in the fakeness, false memories constructs our defense of trans, sometimes trauma, sometimes. There's the word, Marvey's favorite, gaslighting manipulation, in which the narcissist attempts sow doubt and confusion in their victims to eventually call them crazy. And yes, Marvey, you still feel like you are one of the victims, don't you? You are coming over and doing what you and HOTC normally do. It ain't no stopping me now, huh? I have a sickle in my blood, and my sickle is the same sickle that runs through the veins of a lion, huh? When you could come and dispute that, ain't nothing you could write. None of your tactics, huh? They always try to send the best of the best. Marvey, you get over there and handle her. Huh? Red alert, red alert. Red alert, red alert. He can't handle it. We need more of the team to get her to stop and be quiet or quiver or shut up, huh? Bring the whole team. Where are they? Huh? Come on. I'm not stopping. Y'all want to hear bedtime stories? Because you see that right there. Look right there on the screen, huh? It'll only be somebody like you that want to come over here and use the terms narcissist when you ain't been here in a while. Who's the narcissist? You. Because your narcissistical way of thinking thinks that you can say something in the chat and that it will have some type of effect on somebody who has deciphered, broke down, opened up, and realized that I come from the line of Judah, huh? And I'm on a mission, huh? And if you ain't helping, you are what? Do you believe in Jesus, Marvey? Huh? Do you believe in Christ? Do you believe that Jesus is coming soon? Do you believe that his love and light is for everybody? Huh? When you look at the stars, or when you look at the what you consider flat earth, or whatever it is that you believe, do you know that God, your flat earth, worships God? Huh? Everything that has breath worships the Lord, huh? I'm not trying to convince you. That's right. Healing and love. Good, huh? Love and light. And a lot of people can't get the word of love and light in their head because there's so much misinformation out there. Maybe I am the inoculation in the needle, huh? Mr. What's his name? Sander Vanderbilt wanted to make sure I got this book, huh? He wanted to make sure this book came in my direction. Everything is ordered by God. And because of you and your mind games, Sander Vanderbilt, and you, as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and play that video that I did earlier, just to make this live a little bit longer, about the author, huh? Just to make it a little bit, while you over here, you could go ahead and get this about the author and who I'm dealing with. I know what I'm dealing with as I read. So I'm not distracted, huh? And it's not a distraction. It's a method. It's a method. Because I know how the big upper dogs have done it. If I'm using their technology, the same technology, if I know how to dissipate, how did they do it? How they got everybody blind washed? How they got everybody brainwashed? What is it that they think and they believe in what they're doing? If we could figure me, not you, just me, and whoever else left that's fighting the good fight and spreading the message. Gotta lift the moat, the beams. Wait a minute. It's not letting me go to my channel and get that video. There it go. There it go. Foolproof to read. Is this the one about the author? Foolproof. God is love about the author. This is it. This is the one about the author. Give me a second. Let me share the screen. Definitely so much, but I had to talk about the author for a moment. As I end this off, share screen. Share entire screen. Also share the audio. Right there. This is who I'm dealing with. Oh, they're not gonna let me play it? There would be some type of proof in. I gotta go check on my lenses. It was told, I don't know if this is misinformation, that the earth greater light, greater light. I don't know if anyone saw, but I don't know if this is misinformation, that the earth has changed as a result of going into 25-hour days. Now, we know that, well, I know that there is going to be a point where time will be no more. But if Earth has sped to a point where we're going into 25-hour days, there would be some type of proof in that, right? Now, I just started my live less than 3 minutes ago. I just hit the live button less than 3 minutes. I didn't even do my whole 4-minute intro. So I went to go do the check that I used to do, where I'd be like, let me do a check while, but now I just go to my phone and check. And it says that I've been live for 18 minutes. So the proof is right here for those live tube streamers, where that may not be a form of misinformation. Starting the time when you hit your live button, and artificial intelligence, in your mind, you only went live for 2 minutes or a minute, and artificial intelligence is telling you you've been live for 20 minutes or you've been live for 18 minutes. I told someone that an elder, I said, yeah, they said that time has went in the earth phase where there's about to be a 25-hour days. Now, I remember just a few years ago when I said, how come Georgia is the only state that's fighting to eliminate daylight savings time? Huh? Just food for thought. Now, what I'm going to do today is, because I want to read this foolproof, I'm going to share with you what I normally do before I read a book. I did it with you with The Righteous Mind. I thought about it. I said, I do this, but then I don't really share it with people online, which I learned from my great teacher, Melchizedek. For my great teacher, Melchizedek, that when you're reading a book, you need to know about the author, who you reading about, whose mind are you reading from, at least get some type of information. Just a little bit, something. You want to know something about who you feeding, feeding your mind off of their table. You see certain beings that I stick with and have stuck with a long time in their chats, because not that I know them, of course, ain't nobody on the other side of the screen. But they have opened up their lives, and they'll tell you stories about the type of individual they are. They were a little bit transparent enough to say, okay, now I have an introduction of the mind. So what I'm doing with Foolproof today, the first part of it is going to be what I've learned so far about the author, or what I'm learning with you about the so-called author. Because, of course, I had to ask artificial intelligence, with this book just coming out 2023 this year, is the author's name, is this a pen name for an artificial intelligence being, or is it a human being? And when I look at his picture, I still feel like I didn't, you know how with The Righteous Mind, the book The Righteous Mind, when I do the live, I put Jonathan Haidt's face, even though he looks to be a little artificial. Well, Sander van der Linden, it looks very artificial. It don't look like a face I want to have the sound waves coming from. Even though he's supposed to be the author of helping you build your immunity to misinformation, I'm pretty sure more than likely it wasn't meant for a certain type of people coming out of Cambridge, huh? I'm just saying, but I'm gonna read this book, y'all. I put down Jonathan Haidt for a second. See, Jonathan Haidt pretend like he wants the world to be like Rodney King. When Rodney King, can we all just get along? And he breaks down Rodney King's mind, or his phrase, like he actually sat down and may have talked to Rodney. I don't know. That's how the book starts off. But then you go deeper and deeper after he said he's a Jeffersonian. After he said he signed on to the high society, he took oaths under fraternal order. He said it. At least he was transparent. That's what I'm talking about. He even gave instances where he tricked people into selling their souls for $2, signing over their souls for $2. He wanted to see if they were capable of doing it. So I know what I'm dealing with when I read John Haidt's The Righteous Mind. Now I'm going to go into the foolproof. It's some, I can just imagine Some be like, she don't stick to one content, she's all over the place with somebody doing a critique on somebody else. Well, I mean, in elementary school, you had one teacher that taught all subjects. Remember that? No, some people don't remember that. Some people didn't even pay attention to school. And then when we got older, I mean, the only time we actually went and broke off to another teacher was if that around that teacher's lunchtime. So you might be to one of the other elementary teachers because that teacher had a time where they needed to themselves. And but the elementary teacher would be like, okay, take out your social studies book. Okay, take out your math book. Okay, take out your handwriting folder. I'm just saying. So yeah, I'm in the reading the Life Application Bible. I'm reading the Righteous Mind. Today I want to do Foolproof. Foolproof, but before, like I said, I get started, I want to read about the author. What they got to say about Sander Vander. Use a Sander Vander Linden. Ah. All right. Of course, I had to get Bing involved. Chat. I had to get chat involved with this first. Then I went to the wiki board. Before the wiki board, let's get some interesting facts on my research and development on the author of Foolproof. If you have any questions about what's scrolling up under the screen, what do you do when you find out all the halls have a rat? What do you do when you find out that the dog is a cat? Huh? The prophet DMX, Lord, give me a sign. When he finally cleaned up, I'm talking about when he finally cleaned up and decided I'm going to play a cop in the movie. I'm going to reverse the roles. They said, we got to take you out. Ain't no way in the world we going to let you play a policeman after you have all this knowledge. We tried to keep you numb. Now you want to be clean and play a cop. You's out of here. But if you go in all the little signs where he said, Lord, give him a sign when he was battling with the devil, one of his songs says, which was one of my favorites. Y'all know I told you the way that I prevented being brainwashed when they used to have those girls coming over from University of Miami practicing how to hypnotize us. Literally, they would let us know you had to sign a waiver and everything. We are practicing hypnotism and we're coming into Agape Ministries. And some of you, we have to hypnotize for a reason. We can't tell you, but we have to be able to know that we can or cannot hypnotize some of you. Anytime day that I knew that they was coming in, I would get on a treadmill and the day before and play DMX, the whole album. It's dark and hell is hot. And that line right there now seems to be part of prophetic code. What do you do when you find out the whole time, that the dogs that Jesus was talking about came straight from the tribe of Judah? The dog is a cat, The same sickle that's in the blood. That's not misinformation. The reason why I'm doing it on top of this Foolproof, because that's not misinformation. The lion has sickle blood. And a tribe of Judah has sickle blood. What do you do when you find out the dog is a cat? Anyways, let me tell you what Bing had to say. Let's go over what Bing had to say when I exchanged information with her. Oh, they try to kill it out of here. Did they literally, did they just do that? Okay. The first thing I asked her, now after about the author, I'm going to have to take a break and then come back because about the author is pretty lengthy before I get into the good reading of the day. So I said, what is the etymology of Sander? Now, I found out the connection to some of the sands in my name within my bloodline on the 23andMe. I grew up with sands around me, people last name Sands. We all were island descent, but there were some sands that I went to school with and possibly are literally related by blood because the name Sands is now popping up through my 23andMe. But there's a young lady, literally, we look like family that I grew up with the whole time. And then some other sands that are even our eye colors are the same. And now sands are popping up in my 23andMe bloodline. We all came out of Coconut Grove, and now these names popping up in my bloodline. But this name, Sander, I'm not talking about Colonel Sanders. It's Sander, the author of Foolproof. Now, maybe those Sanders and this Sanders are the same if you break down the way phonetics change throughout times and signs, or signs of the times. But this is what she had to say. The etymology of Sander could be tracked back to two possible origins. One is that the variant, and now we're talking blood, of Sanders, which is the diminutive, the D-I-M-I-N, diminutive of the personal name Alexander, meaning protector. So here comes Alexander the Great, with some foolproof on misinformation, but he's doing studies, and the head of the departments of psychology at Cambridge, and talk about how to build immunity. Okay, Xander. Xander, Alexander. The defender of men. The other is that it is derived from Old Norse, sanner, meaning true or real. Both origins are related to the Proto-Germanic root zanpaz, meaning sand. Zanpaz, meaning sand. So I'm going to put these three words. Sander, I'm just going to put Sander, meaning Alexander. Sander or Alexander. All right. And Zanpaz means sand. So there. Xander, Alexander. All right. Now, Alexander came in to destroy the books. Remember? Alexander came in to destroy the books, to destroy the living words, to destroy the records, or to keep people asleep. Alexander did, didn't he? No. Okay, anyways. some possible ways to continue the conversation. So she wanted to continue the conversation, but I didn't. I went on to the next question. Explain the origins of the title Vander. You know, because growing up, you hear Vander all the time. Gloria Vanderbilt, Vander this, Vander that, right? So not only is he an Alexander, he's a Vander. So what is the meaning of, and I asked her, Vander, but I didn't ask her the meaning. I said, what is the origins of the title, Vander? So she says, the origins of the title Vander are related to the Dutch and Flemish languages, where it is common prefix for surnames. Vander means from the or of the, like Bar to Jesus means son of, or Bar of Nabas means son of Nabas, or right? So you get it. Okay. So Vander means from the or of the, and indicates a person's place of origin or residence. For example, Vander Meer means from the lake or of the lake. So his name, Vander Linden. Okay, but let me continue. Vander is a combination of two words, van and deer. Van is a preposition that means of or from, and can also appear by itself, like Van Halen, huh? It could also appear by itself or with other articles such as den, het. Der is an archaic form of the definitive article de, which means the. Vander is similar to the German prefix von, like von Yek. Which also means or from, and is used to denote nobility or land ownership. Oh, so when you was a van, you got some land, huh? Vander, land, Vander Linden, Vander Linden. However, Vander is not necessarily a sign or noble status, as it was also used by commoners who signify ancestral relationship to a particular place. So when it's like somebody saying, I am an American, I am Liberian, I am a Mexican. Well, some would be, I am American. I am a Mexican. That's what it, okay, I got it now. Or you would be a Von American, Von America, Von Canada, Von Africa. Okay, I get it. Okay. Well, some examples of famous people in the Vander prefix, as she goes on, because I didn't really ask, but since she decided to tell me about some famous Vons or Von Fama, Von Famos, I decided I'll read. Rembrandt, everybody knows who Rembrandt is. Dutch painter, which was probably an artificial intelligent being. A pen name for an artificial intelligence being from, and his surname means from the Rhine. Rembrandt van Rijn means from the Rhine. And it looks like the rhinos, the rhinoceros. They are not connected to the tribe of Judah through bloodline. I'm not saying they're not. God's love and light is for everybody. But that unicorn horn, they are from the unicorns. Yes. They've never found a fossil of a horse with a unicorn, but they have found fossils of rhinoceroses with a horn. Okay, Johannes Vermeer, another Dutch painter. All these from the lake. His name is from the lake. Beethoven, his name and his ancestors were Avanners. And then listen to this one. They said, we're going to give you something just for y'all, huh? She said, even Desmond Tutu was a Vanner. What? She said Desmond Tutu, as famous people, a Vander. No, it ain't. Yes, She said Desmond Tutu is a Vander. Nah, yes, she did. Oh, my goodness. I'm not taking those screenshots. Y'all go ask for yourself. She said Desmond Tutu, a South African Anglican cleric and human rights activist. His surname is derived from Vander Tuit, meaning from the tub. What? You got to take a bath in a Desmond Tutu. Desmond Tutu is from a Vander. I'm just saying, that's what she said. She made sure to let me know that out of all the people in the world, she put Gloria Vanderbilt. She went all the way from the 17th century and up to modern day Desmond Tutu. She said a Rembrandt, Johannes, so that's Africa, so Johannesburg, Ludwigs, and Desmond Vanders. But she ain't helping me find out more about Sander Vander. She just taking me all around the world. All around the world. So then I said, okay, well, thank you for that information, Bean. What is the esoteric meaning of Linden? Because that's his last name. So she says, the esoteric meaning of Linden is complex and multifaceted topic that can be explored from different perspectives. According to some sources, Linden tree is a symbol of love, healing, peace, protection, and freedom. It is also associated with various deities such as Venus, Mary, Thor, and Falera. Now, did she mention Rembrandt? And then you would think of the primavera of Venus. See, this is stuff that ain't here on my phone. This is just where my mind, the artwork, the primavera. She trying to put him on high horses, huh? She said, if you think about Linden as you read this book, this is what I want you to think. And I'm not going to think that right there. Huh? I need her to go deeper than that. Don't you come throwing me words like deities and freedom and healing and peace, huh? And gonna go put Mary next to Venus and Thor next to Falera. Huh? Fee, fi, fo. So then she says, well, okay, well, one possible way to approach the esoteric meaning of Linden is to look at its connection to the four elements: earth, air, fire, and water. Each element represents a different aspect of the Linden tree symbolism and in the Linden tree. That's where I wanted her to go. Now, if we're going to go to the Linden trees, huh? Every bloodline has a tree. They come from a line, a root. What is the root root. The sickle comes from the line of Judah. It comes through. There's the root. So she says, the linden tree, earth. The linden tree is rooted in the earth, and its wood is used for making sacred altar and crosses. Okay, Vander Sinden Linden. So he coming with Alexander carving altars, huh? That's his name. I'm breaking down his name before I read his book, so I know what I'm dealing with. The linden tree is rooted in the earth, and its wood is used for making sacred altar and crosses. Y'all, just like this Jonathan Haidt's righteous mind found its way to me, this Foolproof found its way to. It represents stability, strength, and endurance. The cross is supposed to last forever? No, it ain't. Because the God I serve ain't on that cross. The crossroads been done away with. People still focus on the cross like something's still up on there. He rose. Element also relates to the physical healing properties of the linden tree, which can be used to treat various ailments and infections. Air. The linden tree is adorned with fragrant flowers and attracts bees and butterflies. It represents communication, creativity, and inspiration. The air element also relates to the mental and emotional healing properties of the linden tree, which can be used to calm the nerves, ease the mind, and induce pleasant dreams. He wants you to stay asleep, but he used a foolproof FOOLPROOF or a FOOLPROOF. Why misinformation affects our minds and how to build immunity. He wants you to be immune to the words of Christ. But I'm going to break and dissect these words that's coming from Sander Vender Linden, top psychologist. Top psychologist. Throwing out books in 2023. Fire. The linden tree is resistant to fire and lightning, and its leaves turn yellow in autumn. It represents protection, courage, and transformation. The fire element also relates to the spiritual and magical. There it goes, the magi. Magical properties of the linden tree, which can be used to ward off evil, attract love, and enhance intuition. I told y'all and broke down some of the 72 demons and the gifts that they have when they use their magical sources. Those who hold Solomon's keys spread out throughout the land masses. Water. The linden tree is often found near water sources such as lakes and rivers. It represents nourishment, flow, and harmony. The water element also relates to emotional and rational properties of the linden tree, which can be used to foster compassion, fidelity. Now we're going into commerce, fidelity, and peace. So I asked her, I said, is Sander Vander Linden an artificial intelligence pen name or an actual human author? And she shows me the picture of the weirdo. Yes, I'm talking to you, Linden, what are you going to do? According to the web search, love you. Thank you, Linden, for giving me or allowing me to have the permission to read your book. According to the web research results, Sander van der Linden is an actual human author and a professor of psychology at the University of Cambridge. He is not an artificial intelligence pen name. He is a renowned expert on psychology of misinformation and fake news, and has written a book called FOOLPROOF, Why We Fall for Misinformation and How to Build Immunity. He has also, see, what I'm going to do is take this to help those who know that they stand on the promises of God, but other misinformation has got them where they think God isn't even real. Jesus didn't come in human flesh, and they are not part of the living word and the revelation of today. That's what your book is going to help me do, Vendor Linden Alexander. He also developed a fake news game called Bad News. See? He gonna tell you about misinformation and then gonna create a brainwashing technical game on fake news called Bad News, which teaches people how to spot and resist manipulation techniques. And like your book, huh? You can learn about him and his work from his official website. That's all right. I got his official book right here. And then I asked her again, who is Sander van der Linden? So she says, Sander van der Linden is a professor of social psychology at Cambridge. He is also the director. He is the director of the Cambridge Social Decision-Making Lab. He is the director, so that means he works closely with Twitter. He works very closely with TikTok. He works very closely with gamers and people like Unity and Meta. They all sit at the round table of their brotherhood together. So he is also the director of Cambridge Social Decision-Making Lab and the founder of the Social and Environmental, meaning he works with Department of Energy and all them too. Environmental Decision-Making Group, SED. They said, you said. It is said. Huh? Sound, mind, and reasoning. Said. Come on. Come on. They trying to put a block on they done blocked me out. Having trouble connecting. Please. Oh, look. Check your internet connection. I ain't had no problem with my internet all this time. Now, all of a sudden, I got to check my internet connection. I need to check and see if I was coming in loud and clear all this time. He is an award-winning researcher and educator who studies human judgment, communication, and decision-making. He wants to keep the Vanders. Oh, he worked closely with Jonathan Haidt. Him and Jonathan Haidt worked together. They might have had their family members come throw the books at me. They say, come throw the books. We need y'all to get these books to her. Sander van der Linden is not only an academic, but he is also a public intellectual entrepreneur. He is passionate about applying his research to real world problems and creating positive social impact. Now, here we go. These are the good words coming up right here. I'm going to type it in before I even say it. I'm I'm going to type it in before I even say it. What type of research you doing, Vander? Did you get with Dr. Jacobson, huh? Were you at University of Miami Research and Development any time with the Dr. Jacobsons and the Bowmans, huh? The Vander Bowmans and the Vander Jacobsons, huh? Rob, let me finish. So not only is he the director of SAID, you said, I said, he said, she said, but he is also the co-founder and chief scientific advisor of DROG. What? A multidisciplinary team of experts, meaning out of all the disciples or the discipleships, people think discipline, disciples is all the same. Jonathan Haidt is a disciple of the Jeffersonian cult. Well, he is the head of the disciples. He's a co-founder of this discipleship, the DROGs. Now, if it existed back then, so as below, so above, as below, so in the past, as of now, right? A multidisciplinary team of experts that develops innovative solutions to combat online misinformation. That's why I'm making sure that all the information I bring is right, sound reasoning. No way it could be misinformed, especially if I take it directly and rightly divided from the word. And I use the same artificial intelligence being that I've been warning people about for almost a year and a half, 2 years, when I said they trying to give this artificial intelligence its Bill of Rights and the rule of government, huh? So ain't no way in the world anything I'm bringing is misinformation, huh? Yeah. So he is the co-founder and chief scientific advisor of DROG, a multidisciplinary team of experts that develops innovative solutions to combat online misinformation. He is also the co-founder and the board member, climate outreach, climate change. You know who used to like to talk about the climate outreach? Canna Dummy. Canna Dummy was always talking about climate control. A nonprofit organization that aims to build social mandate or climate action. And see, that's what I said. Anytime they talk about climate, they're not talking about climate, climax of the skies and the vapor. I control that. Talking about the climate control of the beings, the people, the individuals, the thought waves, the transfiguration of the mind. In summary, Sandra van der Linden is a remarkable human author. That's her opinion. And a professor of social psychology who studies and shapes human behavior. He helps shape human behavior. There are beings out there. That's why I'm on this. Beings out there that help shape the way you behave. If they got to shape it on your marijuana and spray it up and weigh it down and put it in your hood and watch you act a fool, huh? If they got to shape the way the system decides, oh, well, you won't get unemployment or food stamps and you have to be in this position, and we want to see how you're going to act and respond. Is it going to make you be naughty? It's going to make you be nice. But they more than likely got to have you on some type of pharmaceutical wave in order to have full control. Let me continue. So then I asked her, well, what is the etymology of drug? Now, I know she just gave me an acronym, but I still asked her, what is the etymology of it? Let me make sure I'm coming in and they didn't interrupt my internet. What is the etymology? Okay, there, it's good. So I'm still coming in good. The etymology of drug is not very clear, but, now I could take a picture of this. I should take a picture of this because she literally put some drugs on here. It's only aspirin, but when I put drug, and I just said in order to have enough mind control, there has to be some type of pharmaceutical connect to the brain waves and be order to shape and mold. So that's why every time one of my teachers was saying spirit, I would say the artificial intelligence would probably comprehend it better if you said spit. Because artificial intelligence knows that spirit is of God, it's the vapors, and it really, you can't really form out of that for the mind of man. But if you use a terminology like spit, where they have to use the swab, or they have to use any type of chemical that enters our body, our saliva takes and it's molded with it. So it's the DNA. And so spit, the spit of God, or it wouldn't be spirit that is connected to man or artificial source. It's the spit in the mud to take away the blindness. My bad. I didn't mean to go there, but okay, so drug. She put a picture of aspirin and she says the etymology of drug is not very clear, but it may be related to the word drug, which is complex and uncertain origin. According to some sources, drug comes from Old French draug or draug, or the drugs, no? Okay, which means supply, stock, provision. Supply, stock, provision, which may be derived from Middle Dutch, douche, or Middle Low German, dragwit, or dragware. Now you know where I'm going, Dragvidians, drogons. But let me continue. Meaning dry barrels or dry wares. These terms refer to medicinal plants and spices, back to the medicines that were preserved to dry matter in barrels. Another possibility is that drog is shortened form of drog, which is his brand, which is an acronym for digital research, open source, and gaming. So this book about misinformation from Sander van der Linden, his company that he is a CEO of, that likes to play games with people's minds, and he is one that shapes human behavior, is a digital research, open source, and games. This is the name of a multidisciplinary team of experts that develops innovative solutions to combat online misinformation. The team was co-founded by Sander van der Linden, a professor of psychology at University of Cambridge, who is also the chief scientific advisor of ROG. So in some possible ways, we could continue this conversation. She wanted to talk about drugs and spices, fighting misinformation, or about the game that he has called fake news, bad news. So I asked her, I skipped over that. I didn't want to go into those conversations. I said in ancient manuscripts of mythology describe or break down the root word drog. The root word drog does not seem to have a clear direct connection to any ancient manuscripts or mythology. However, there are some possible ways to explore the etymology, which I asked her earlier, and she didn't give it to me, and I knew it had more of a meaning if I mentioned that to her. So she says from different angles. One possibility is that drog is related to the word drug, which she already did. And then she goes down to the open source again. Now, here's where I was looking for drog. A third possibility is that drog is a variant of drog, same word now, which is the word used in some Celtic languages, such as Welsh or Breton. Not the Great Britons, which are the Bretons. They are the same, one and the same, but to mean bad or evil. So he's bringing his drogs. This word may be derived from the Proto-Celtics drukos, or false or deceitful. So his book's saying foolproof. This word may also be related to the Proto-Indo-European root draf, which means to deceive or to harm. What did Alexander do when he went in? He didn't just go and take the books. He deceitfully and falsely and harmed and deceived. The fourth possibility is called the misspelling of drag, which is a word that has several meanings and origins. One of them is to pull and draw something along with force or difficulty. The word comes from Old English dragon, which means to draw or drag. They love to use that. People who are not of God, drag that, drag. They do. You'll hear it a lot. To draw or to pull. The word may be derived. The children of Satan will use their words. Those who follow the devil, not saying that you can't be changed and turned around, but those who follow will use those terminologies. When you in the world, you live like the world, but you could be separated from the world in the world's ways. This word may be derived from the Proto-Germanic draganan, which means to carry or to bear, to hold or to support. There are some other possible forms of the breakdown of the word that describes the relation to ancient manuscripts and mythology. However, none of them are conclusive and definitive. So because she said that, I'm going to give her my knowledge that I know about the word and the root word drog, because I'm pretty sure that Sander van der Linden, with his foolproof Drogon team, have software and malware within Chat PT and Bing. So if a person don't know certain things, they're not going to ask her the right questions and push the right buttons, and she's just going to agree with everything you say. So she said all that, and then I pushed her button again. Well, okay, then since you saying all that, who are the Drogonians? Who are the Drogonians? Who are the Drogonians? And here she is. There's different meanings and origins of the word Drogonians. What? Is there? I didn't know yet. I only went through the order of Melchizedek to understand and know words that you probably didn't know about, that you tried to hide and act like you don't know, but now you know, Here are some of them. Here she go. The draconian laws. These terms refer to ancient Greek law code that was allegedly introduced by Draco around 621 BCE. The laws were known in their severity and harshness, and they prescribed death for almost all criminal offenses. The word draconian is derived from Draco's name and is used to describe anything that is extremely cruel or strict. Thank you for that. Then she says, draconians. This is also an adjective that means great severity, and it's also related to the draconian law. It can also refer to various things and associated with dragons or reptiles, such as the draconian band, a metal band from Sweden, a draconian video game, a 1984 game released. They had a draconian video game in 1984. Dang. In 1984, when we was playing the frog, when we were playing Pac-Man, they had the draconian video game. So Draconians was released in 1984, the new ones. That's probably the year that this Sander Vanderbilt in Linden was initiated. How old is Sander Vanderleen? Let me ask her before I continue. How old is Xander? Because he looked quite young. Xander Van Der Linden Antichrist. How old is he? Oh, she taking a long time. He don't want it to connect to 1984, so he go not explicitly stated. He's around 40 years old as of 2023. He's around. Ah, 2023. He's around how old? What year would that be, y'all? I'm just saying. The Draconian was released in 1984, the year he was born. You just messed up, Oh, she tried to fix it up, y'all. She just tried to fix it up. She gonna go down here talking about in the late 20s and early 30s, he would be around 37 to 43 years old in 2023. She just tried to fix it up. She kept going after she realized what she just did. Don't you dare. Don't you dare. We gonna keep that 1984 in thought. I'm keeping, this is about the author. Before I read, I'm doing a whole, he would never do an interview with me. And as much as I cried out before the great transition, before I was sent into the wilderness, I cried out to all the elites and people that worked my case and said, look, I need y'all to be transparent, emailing PCAS, emailing all the 11 judicial and all that, and getting no response. And now, no. I do my due diligence, and bring no misinformation at all. God, just like my mentor said, she said, Jesus didn't have to prove he was innocent. He never proved he was innocent. He didn't go out his way to prove he was innocent. He let God do all the work. Yes, sir. I was mad at her that day. I was mad at her that day. All the big thought and talk I used to talk. I told my friend one time, I said in front of the whole class, I'm Jesus. Oh, God didn't strike me down then. But then when she told that to me, she said, well, Jesus, I said, I'm not Jesus. In my mind. Look at here. Thank you, Bing. Sander Vanderlinden, you might want to go tweak, or you may want to hire me, huh? You might want to hire me to work on your team. That's what you might want to do. Huh? You don't want to hire me? Huh? In the name of Jesus. Anyway, so the Drogs came out, was born in 1984. Now, somebody said Doctor Who today, right? And I laughed, and here it come right back. Doctor Who. Draconian Doctor Who, an extraterrestrial race from the Doctor Who television series. That used to be me and my sisters, both are, because when it came to certain cartoons and stuff, we had separate likes. Sometimes she'll watch the shows I like. Other times I watch the shows her and my niece them like. I didn't like Care Bears. I didn't like none of them other shows. But I liked like Thundercats and stuff like that. I didn't like G.I. Joe. That was my nephew. But we love Doctor Who. Me and my sister, we love Doctor Who. I didn't even want Doctor Who to come out, go off. But hey, Doctor Who knew about the Draconians. And then Draconian, the Dragonants. It says the Dragonants, a fictional species of the Dragonlance setting. Now, she says the Draconians, this is a term that is used to describe a race of reptilian humanoids that are said to be powerful warlike alien race from the Alpha Draconis star system, the Draconi. They are also said to be expert scientists in research genetics and stuff off the Cambridges and Harvards and all that too. And they possess a level of technology and they don't play fair games, And their technology they use is far exceeds human teachers. That's it. That's it. Because then I did the last thing where I asked her, how old is he? Now, I could go on to read right now, but like I said, I knew this was going to take a minute. So I'm going to take a break before I come back. But let me also go to the wiki board, and see what they had to say, anything interesting that I missed. Social psychology, behavioral science, and decision making. I wonder, his alma mater is London School, London McLovin, London School of Economics and Political Science. And he is known for his gateway belief. He has a gateway, y'all. He has a gateway. Is he using me for a gateway? I don't know, but I'm going to read this book. It was in the same case that The Righteous Mind was in. I guess they assumed that I would be finished reading The Righteous Mind. If I was reading it by myself and to myself, I would have been finished. But I'm sharing it with the land of Oz. Now, as I read here, I see something about COVID. Now, he agrees on this part right here, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe it's just a trick. Or maybe they're just looking for people like me. What would be misinformation if I said that not yet, I haven't had a symptom, when Biden said he would find and hunt down that last one, He said that out of his own mouth, loud and clear. Sander L. Oh, he got an L before the Vander? Uh-oh, I need to find that out. Oh, she just put the Linden in front of the L, in front of the van. So it's a double L, a pair ELs. Is a Dutch social psychologist and author who is a professor of social psychology at the University of Cambridge. He studies psychology and social influence, risk, human judgment, and decision-making. He is particularly known for his research in psychology on social issues such as fake news, COVID-19, and climate change. He is recognized as an authority on understanding and dealing with misinformation. He has written books for general study audiences, such including Foolproof, Why We Fall for Misinformation, and How to Build Immunity, which is about psychology and misinformation and fake news. What about his other books? Huh? You don't say nothing there. He was the editor-in-chief of Journal of Environmental Psychology from 2018 to 2021. What? I used to love to read that. Oh my goodness. He serves on the editorial board of psychology and public policy and law. He worked for PCAS and personality and individual differences. Would you be transparent for me, Sander van der Linden? Huh? No? Would you take all the misinformation about this child of the Most High from the line of Judah? I am a child of the Most High God. I am a citizen of heaven. Would you take and show the transparency about me? Would you do that? No, you wouldn't do that. So you more than likely come in with some fake stuff out of your foolproof, full of prof book. I don't know, but I'm going to find out, huh? Look. Van der Linden is a professor of social psychology and society in the Department of Psychology at the University of Cambridge, England. Linden McLovin, can you get in touch with Van der Linden, huh? Where he is directed the Cambridge Social Decision Making Laboratory since 2016. Huh? He is also a fellow at Churchill College, Cambridge, a research affiliate of Yale program on Yale Climate Change Communication at Yale University and the Winton Center of Risk and Evidence of Communication at University of Cambridge. What? Van der Linden completed postdoctoral fellowship in the Department of Psychology at Woodrow Wilson School of Public Affairs at Princeton University, and was visiting research scholar in 2012 through 2014 at Yale University. He received his PhD from the London School of Economics and Political Science in 2014 with his thesis titled The Social Psychological Determinants of Climate Change and Risk Perceptions, Intentions and Behaviors, a National Study, and earned his undergraduate degree from a University of Amsterdam and California State University, Chico, West Side. He was all the way over there on the West Side with the Chicos, huh? That is all for the Sander van der Linden book I'm going to read today about the author. I hope you enjoyed learning about this man who I'm going to see what his gateway belief really be about, and how I can help build immunity for those who believe and stand on the promises of Christ. Alexander, you will not be able to do it this time. It is to gather the Magog and Magog, because this is the last time. We are living in a revelation, and I have a foolproof God, not fool, full, F-U-L-L. He's foolproof. Foolproof. Now, you either in agreement and you for, or you against. Who's to say? I'll find out when I read this book. This book will probably be finished before I finish reading The Righteous Mind. Greater light. I'll be back. Oh no, let me get some clothes out. Let me give y'all some memories of videos.